2. All right, everybody, what's going on? Your boy T. Jones of the show about another podcast with alongside my boy War Machine. We're gonna be talking to y'all about Power Ranger theory. From this timeline, we're going from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, Power into Space, and Time Force. So that's how the story is gonna go down, and we're gonna be talking about some more stuff. So I'm gonna let my boy War Machine kick the game off. Let's get it.
All right, so right now we're going to talk about one of everybody's favorite Power Rangers, Time Force. Now, here's the theories that we have. We're going to talk about first we're going to talk about the S.P.D. I'm going to go ahead and jump into S.P.D. real quick. Now, I know a lot of people think that Sky Tate is the son of Wesley Collins and Jen Scotts. Well, he's not. He's not their son. He's not the son of West, because people believe, and I ain't gonna lie, I was the same person. I thought, wait a minute, when I first saw that clip, and I didn't even really watch S.P.D., I just happened to watch the episode. It was on TV at the time. And I was like, what? West was his dad? But then I went into it, and I saw, like, wait a minute. I saw another picture when he was holding as a kid, and it showed him and his dad in a photo, and it wasn't West. It was some other dude. So I'm like, wait a minute, this is not West. So I went inside and did some more of my history, and I found out this dude's name is not Wesley Collins. His dad's name was Alex Tate. Two different guys that just happened to be wearing the same type of suit.
Right.
Now remember, Saban's last Power Rangers before Samurai was Time Force, which means that S.P.D. was made by Disney. So what people didn't know, and I didn't know until I figured it out, like, wait a minute, West never had the S.P.D. logo on his uniform, on his Time Force uniform. At the time, Disney was running low on Power Ranger material. So they had to recycle and use some of the same costumes for the previous Rangers. So they happened to use the Time Force Red Ranger suit for Sky's dad. And they just put an S.P.D. logo on it to clear it up and let everybody know this is an S.P.D. fit, not the Time Force fit. So,
right.
And also, another thing some dude pointed out on YouTube, and I did my research on it, if you look at the S.P.D. A squad, you would notice that they were all wearing the Power Rangers in Space helmets. Instead of one being black, it was spray painted green and black. But still,
right.
It was the same helmets. All they did was just put an S.P.D. logo on them. So no, Sky Tate is not the son of West and not the son of Jen. Wes Collins is not Sky Tate's dad. His dad is named Officer Tate, and his real name is Alex Tate. So there you go. For the people who think that's his son, it's not. Wes is not the dad of Sky Tate. That's how we end that.
Right. And what I just want to, like, since he talked about that, we're going to go right to what I've been thinking about since we talked about this the other day. I was thinking, the Power Rangers series, I think the Power Rangers universe, I just blame Power Rangers in their own universe, which they're like, they don't have a specific universe, not like the DC and the Marvel universe. They don't have their own universe. I believe Power Rangers is set in their own universe, which says, now Galaxy and Space, I have a feeling that they tie in together. They have to, because it's Galaxy and Space, they both dealing with space and all that. You know, we don't know how many, like, light years away, all that stuff in time and space. So I'm like, okay. And we'll talk about Zordon. We talk about touched on Zordon. I'm like, okay, how do these Rangers get their powers? You know what I'm saying? That's one of the things that we thought about, like, okay, Zordon had to have apprentices. You know what I'm saying? He had to have ways of getting these people their powers. And like we said about the last Power Rangers they did with all the Rangers popped up OG Rangers, and how I think he said the Blue Ranger was watching all the videos from old Power Rangers and stuff. I'm like, do they know there's other Rangers, or is it just so they happen to have you get these powers? Because I'm like, somebody has to know about Zordon, because Zordon is the all. He knows Zordon was the first. So I'm like, where do all the other powers come from? You know, it's like it's like it comes to the point where I think like it was time for it. It goes back to time for it. Didn't know time. Like maybe which Ranger was it? Time Force Ranger was it that went back? Which went back?
It was all 4 Time Force Rangers. They went from the year 3000 to 2001.
Okay, 3000, the year 2001. So maybe they did it backwards. I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they went back in time and set the morphers back, in that time and went back to the future, because you know they can't reset time. Like, okay, we gotta have it like how did I say it the other night? Like, you can't change the future. You can change the future, but you can't change the past. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have to reset. Okay, we got to set this up so it can happen like this in the future. So I think they went back in time, gave the morphers to the OG Rangers, placed their morphers back then went back to the future. Because like, it's so many holes in the Power Ranger universe that nobody never really thought about. It's a lot of things a lot of questions that have not been answered. Like I said, don't see it, and in other words, the Ivan News, that's a lot of stuff that's really left out. Okay, how do they play into this? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like a lot of stuff that's not been answered in this in the years of Power, and that we have not got answered.
Well, I do
That's
got an
my
answer for
opinion.
one of them.
What's up?
We're going back to the Time Force theory. Now, everybody want to know, did Jen stay with West? Did they live happily ever after, or did she go back to the year 3001? Well, here's the theory. We all know that on the Time Force series at the beginning, where Alex, the original Red Time Force Ranger, was struck down by Ransik, and he was the fiance of Jen, the Pink Ranger, Time Force Ranger. He escaped and went back to the past, the year 2001. And Jen and the rest of the other 3 Rangers followed him, not only to bring him back because it was their job, but also for Jen to get revenge after he struck down her fiance. But when we get to the year 2001, Silver Hills, we find out that there's a guy named Wesley Collins who looks exactly like the Red Ranger in the future. And we also find out that the morphers can only be unlocked unless someone morphs with the Red Ranger's morpher. And the only person who can morph with the Red Ranger's morpher has to have the same DNA as Alex. And since Wes looks like him, that means they have the same DNA. So we all came to the conclusion that Wes has to be the ancestor of Alex years before.
Right.
Well, here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You know what? It brings me back to my attention that I never thought about. Remember back in that last episode when all the Pirates came back. Now Tommy, he was the Green Ranger, right?
Right.
Now, contrary to popular belief, to people that forgot, those power coins got destroyed. How is he using the Green Ranger power that those coins were destroyed? Because remember, Adam, he used the Mastodon power coin, and they said, yo, I can't use it. If you use this, you can like die. You can like really get hurt if you use it, but he used it anyway, but he couldn't use the powers that long. So the powers that be, okay, how is Tommy using his power coin without getting hurt?
Well, I came to the conclusion on that. See, if anybody can remember, this is my conclusion on that theory. Adam, when he morphed into the Black Ranger and almost died, even Alpha warned him not to do it. That was before they saved Zordon. So what I think happened is that when Andros on Power Rangers in Space, when Zordon told him, shatter my glass, that's the only way to save the universe, and Andros broke the glass, and all Zordon's power shattered all over the world, and it killed all the monsters. It turned them all to sand, turned Rita and Lord Zed back human. It turned Divatox back human. It turned Corone, Andros' sister, back human, and the rest of the people that weren't humans, that were just straight monsters, all turned to sand. So what I think happened was, because of the power that Zordon had in his energy tube, it remade the Morphers. It gave them energy and brought them back to life. That's what I think. I think his Morpher, because remember, when they got the great power on the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger movie, it made the command center go back to normal.
Right.
And it made Zordon's glass close up again. So I think when Zordon had all that energy, I think he used, because that ties into the movie. So I think, right. So we all know Zordon had the great power. Remember? Right, Zordon had the great power that can bring stuff back to peace. So I think when he died, the powers went into the Morphers and revived the Morphers.
I didn't think of that.
So they didn't crack in the first place. Now, as for them using it, no, I don't think Zordon had the power to make it where they can use their Morphers again, but he did make them where they had the power to, transform again. Because if you go back and look at Once a Ranger, Always a Ranger, the Night Ranger had to go into the morphin grid and turn it on and pull out the Power Rangers' powers. So their powers went back to the morphin grid, which means if Tommy typed into the morphin grid and converted the power to his morpher, he can morph into the Green Ranger again.
Right, which leads to another question. Leads another one that we talked about. It goes back to Zeo, the Zeo crystals. I'm like, and I said the Zeo crystals are like the Dragon Balls. They had to find all 5 Zeo crystals. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happened before? What made this? Is what I don't understand. With the Zeo crystals, this is what we talked about before. I'm like, okay, why are the Zeo crystals spread out? Who were the first Zeo Rangers? Why are these Zeo crystals spread out? You know what I'm saying? We all say that there's we come to the conclusion that there's Rangers everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Not just Angel Grove, not just in space, not just in time, and there's got to be more. But how did these Zeo crystals come to play? Cause I'm saying it like this. I think the Power Ranger universe is all set in different time. I think you got the year 3001. Then you got the 95 era, the 90s. But I'm thinking inside the universe, what year, what time frame are they standing in? Because it could be like stuff. You could 4 years into 20 years in the future. Then on another episode, like 20 years in the past, or 4 years in the future, and 6 years in the past. Where does it all stand? Because basically, they always a Ranger. They all know about each other. And if you think about it, they always say, there's more of us. I didn't know there's other Rangers. Every Ranger no other Ranger knows there's more Rangers. It is like, oh my gosh, who are these guys? I didn't know there were more Rangers. You know what I'm saying?
I can answer that. See, after watching so many of the team-ups, crossover episodes, I've realized it's not that they're in a different time, in a different time frame, like the 1900s, the 1800s. They're actually in the same time zones. It just, they happen on different years. See, because if you go look at Lightspeed crossed over with Turbo. Lightspeed crossed over with Galaxy. Galaxy came from the planet Miranoid, which that's where they sit. That's where their season ended on the planet Miranoid. And on one of the
Right.
crossover episodes, the Red Galaxy Ranger came down to Mariner Bay, where the Time Force, the Lightspeed Rangers were, and they asked him, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "I came all the way from Miranoid to help stop these monsters that escaped from our planet," which that tells you, and they knew who he was because they said, "You're Leo, the Red Ranger." So that tells you that they're actually not from different time frames. They're just from different years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They all tie into each other because, like you said, space tie into galaxy. Yes, because on space, you had the mega ship. Remember the big ship that they used to fight?
Right.
At the end of Power Rangers in Space, they went to Earth. And the Space Rangers froze their morphers on the ship. They put them in a freezing chamber, and they went to go live normal lives. And they left the ship on Earth as a museum. But
Right.
on Galaxy, if you go back and watch the first episode of Galaxy, the Galaxy Rangers took the Power Rangers in Space ship because one of the Galaxy Rangers was the mechanic for the ship. And he was like, "Oh, this is just a museum. This ain't a real ship." Then they said, "Okay, let's see." They messed around and the ship began to move. And it flew. So that tells you that space was tied into Galaxy because the Galaxy Rangers used the same spaceship that the Power Rangers in Space used. And then on the crossover episode, when the Red Space Ranger came back, he got on the ship that they was using, that the Galaxy Rangers was using, and he said, "Guys, follow me." And he typed that in a code and went into the secret room that was on the ship. And they said, the Galaxy Rangers said, "Hey, we didn't know this. We didn't know there was a secret room in here." And he's like,
Right.
"Exactly." He went in the secret room, and what was on the ship? Their morphers, the space morphers. So that tells you that yes, Galaxy and space were tied into each other because Galaxy used the Power Rangers in Space spaceship. They used it.
Right.
They
But
just
see,
didn't.
then no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say they didn't know all the secret rooms that the Space Rangers had on the ship because the Galaxy Rangers only used a certain part of the ship. They didn't use the whole ship like the Space Rangers did. So they didn't know about these secret rooms that the Space Rangers showed them when they came back for the crossover episode.
This is another thing that comes to mind. Let's jump back a little. Let's jump forward. Let's jump back a little bit. Dino Thunder. Dino Thunder. That's what that always threw me off. And there's another like, if the Dino Rangers from had the original Power Rangers had the Dino powers, how in the hell do the Dino Thunders have dinosaur power? After the Dino powers were destroyed, I'm like, even though Tommy, which one was it, had an updated version of Alpha 5, Alpha 6, you know what I'm saying? That's another thing. If Tommy had Alpha 6, what span of time is Dino Thunder in? You think about it. If
It's
you think
later.
about it,
It's later.
you know what I'm saying? Like, how many years later is Dino Thunder? You gotta think, okay, if you still got, if Tommy still has Alpha, and the Dino powers were destroyed years ago, how do these guys have their Dino powers? You know what I'm saying?
Well, see, here's the thing. The Dino powers from Power Rangers Dino Thunder were in a different area. And number two, it wasn't the same Zords that we saw from
Right.
Mighty Morphin. They had different dinosaurs, Zords. They didn't have the T-Rex or the Triceratops or the rest of those. They had different dinosaurs, which we all know the history of the dinosaurs. There are more than just 5 different types of dinosaurs.
Oh yeah.
And see, Dino Thunder ties in 3 years after Time Force because Dino Thunder takes place in the year 2004, not 2001. So that tells you that they're only a couple years apart. They're not really that much distance apart. That's how they know about each other. Now, to the point where you said, how do the other Rangers don't know about other Rangers? Well, here's the thing. Some of them do know about the other Rangers. Some of them.
Right.
Some of them don't. But it's all about, I think, it's not about the time. I think it's about the area. Like I said, I think the Power Ranger franchise is like this. It's like the news. I think what happens in New York, you're not going to hear it in Texas. You're not going to hear about it. What happens in California, you're not going to hear about it in Florida. The only time you will hear about it is if it's something that interferes with the whole world. Then that's the only time everybody in the state's going to hear about it. And that's how I look at the Power Ranger franchise. Because each Power Rangers protected a different area. Time Force had Silver Hills. Mighty Morphin had Angel Grove. Lightspeed had Mariner Bay. So they each had different areas. Which means that's why I think they didn't know about each other. Because they all were from different spots. And each Power Rangers generation protected only one city. Even though they consider it the whole world, they only were really basically protecting one city. That's why no one heard about it. Only the people in that city. But one thing I want to get off my chest is people want to know what happened with Jen and Wes after the Wild Force series. Did Jen stay or did she return? I believe, just like most of you people out there believe, I believe she stayed. I actually believe Jen stayed with Wes. Now, I know what a lot of people thinking. I heard a guy say, what if it messes up the time frame? Because Jen's not from the year 2002. She's from the year 3000.
Right.
1,000 years later. Well, if anybody, you know what they always say. You can always change your future. You can always change your destiny. You can't change the past, like you said earlier. So I think what happened, what a lot of people don't remember, what a lot of people really didn't think about, I think Time Force changed the future. Because there was a lot of things that happened that wasn't supposed to happen. Because remember, at the beginning of the series, they told them, don't mess with time. But then, later on in the series, we find out, well, Alex didn't die. He was still alive. We find out that Eric unlocks the Quantum Morpher, which is from Time Force. West, him and Jen starts having this relationship, and we know that Alex comes in somewhere in the middle of the series and tells them, I'm here to fix things because everything is off track. He said that West was going to is supposed to take over his dad's business, and West's dad was going to die. Well, West said, I choose my own destiny, and he decided to not listen and say, fuck it, I don't want to be like my dad. I want to do things for myself. So he went back to the Ranger team. And Alex, even though in the history books it said his dad was supposed to die, West's dad, Alex decided to save his dad, which means time was changed right there. Am I right?
Right.
Because his dad didn't die. West's dad didn't die like it was supposed to. And West did not take over his dad's business. He stayed as the Red Ranger. So, time was changed. Then, also, at the end of the season where they said that if all the Rangers would have stayed on that last battle, they all would have died. So Alex told them to go back to the future, and West sent them back by tricking them to get into the ship. When they went back, Alex told them, well, all you guys have to get your memory erased. That's a Time Force policy. If you go back in the past and you come back to the future, you got to get your memory wiped. It'll mess things up. They chose not to get their memory erased. They said, heck no, we're not getting our memory erased. They declined. Also, they said that West was gonna die. That's what Alice told him. He was gonna die. He was gonna save the world, but he was gonna die in the process. They went
Right.
back again and stopped West from dying. So once again, the future was changed
Right.
because he didn't die. They saved him, and they had their memory of going back in the future. I mean, in the past. So once again,
Right.
time was changed. So in my conclusion, I think that what Jen stayed because on the Wild Force episode, when her and Wes were coming up near the fire, he said, Jen, I always had this feeling that we would one day see each other again. And she said, I guess I can change my destiny too. Which
Right.
means I think she changed her destiny and said, fuck it, I'ma stay here. Because time had already changed
Right.
in the future because of all the stuff that they did. And I think it changed for the good. Like, I don't think nothing bad really happened. So I think Jen's like, okay, I'm going to just stay with West. I mean, the
Yeah.
future already changed. We already going to remember him regardless. So I might as
Right.
well stay with him. So I think it was an alternate. I think it stayed the same. Because like we said, Rancic, he turned good. He wasn't a monster no more. He had a human face. And remember, this is 1,000 years before his face get melted. 1,000 years before he's born. So once again, what can we say, bro? Time was changed, right?
Yep.
So it got to the point where she stayed, man. She stayed. And I think it was good because the ending was crazy. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I teared up a little bit. It was very emotional. It was emotional, man. Still a better love story than Twilight. Real talk. It
But
was
it
sad,
can't
man.
at the top the love story between Tommy and Kimberly, but that's a topic for another
Hey,
video. That's gonna be a part two.
this may actually be able to beat the love triangle of Kimberly and Tommy, the love thing, because we knew how much they loved each other. We saw it through the series. We saw them dating, but these two actually never got to date. That's what it is. Jen and Wes never actually got to date because they were from two different times. And when she finally told him how she felt and how he finally told her about how he felt, it was too late. So, it left. And then the kiss was never there. They never got that kiss that everybody was seeing. When you watched it at the end, I know you, Tony, you're probably like me. Everybody was glued to that screen. They was waiting for that kiss. We was waiting for the kiss, and the kiss never came. And it hurt. Like, damn it, we wanted that kiss. And like we said, at the end of the Wild Force episode with Time Force, we never saw the Time Force Rangers go back to the future. We saw them celebrating their victory at a picnic. So then that left the question, did any of them go back? Or did they all stay? Like we said, the future was already alternate. I mean, come on, you were going to go back, and the guy who was a bad guy at the time in your future is actually good in the past. And his face is normal. So basically, everything was changed. So they're like, hey, what's the worst that can happen? So they stayed. So I believe, yes, when West and Jen stayed together, just like we wanted them to. And they probably had a
Hey,
family.
hey, this is just part one, people. We gonna upload this month, get it to y'all. Like I said, let us know y'all got theories about what we talked about. What y'all theories is, let us know. So we're gonna take care of it like
Wait.
that.
Before we go, like I said, I got one more thing to say, and this on the other theory that a dude said. Well, another thing that lets you know that time had to be changed was, remember, they bought the morpher to West from the year 3000, right?
Right?
And he kept it. They never took the morpher back. Remember, he didn't have the morpher at the beginning until they gave it to him. And they left. So he kept the morpher. and
All right.
so did Eric. Eric kept the quantum morpher, which was also from the future, which means, hey, time changed because those morphers actually belonged to the year 3000 and they kept them. Time
True.
changed. So, yeah, like he
Hey.
said, this is part one. Next time, we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about next time.
But we're gonna start from the original to Samurai and Ninja Storm. Yeah. No, we're gonna talk about the Quantum Rangers and the Quantum Rangers, the Alien Rangers, right?
No, the Quantum Ranger is the sixth Ranger from Time Force.
Yeah. I mean the Alien Rangers and who else? We're gonna let y'all know. Yeah, y'all gonna find out next week. Don't worry about
we're going to
it.
let you guys know. Like the Power
All
Rangers
right, man.
say, back to action.
Exactly. Cut the camera off. Cut the camera off.